What if I told you that the system you think is keeping power in check only works if you're watching it, because if you're not, then who is? Let me ask you something. When you hear the phrase, "we the people," who actually holds the power? Because most people will say, the people. But if you look at how things operate today, it doesn't always feel that way, and that's where the disconnect begins. This country was built on a very specific idea. The Constitution was never meant to control the people. It was meant to limit the government, while the people made sure those limits were respected. In other words, it only works if the people are paying attention. Now fast forward to today. Ask yourself this. Does it feel like the government answers to the people? Or does it feel like the people are reacting to the government? Because those are two very different systems. And that difference didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, one decision at a time, one expansion at a time, one moment where something didn't quite sit right, but most people moved on. Now here's where people start to notice the contrast. Look at the gap, not left versus right, just the gap between the people and the people in power. Different rules, different consequences, different levels of transparency. Take financial transparency. Members of Congress are required to disclose their trades under the Stock Act, and yet there have been repeated reports of lawmakers trading stocks in industries they oversee, sometimes even while receiving high-level briefings. Investigations have happened, but serious penalties have been rare. Now compare that to the average person. If you trade on non-public information in the private sector, that's insider trading, that's prosecution, that's prison. Now look at information control. In 1971, the Pentagon Papers revealed that key details about the Vietnam War had been withheld from the public. Decades later, the Snowden disclosures showed how extensive surveillance programs had become, far beyond what most people understood at the time. So here's the pattern. Information exists, but the public doesn't always see it until much later. Now think about accountability. When investigations involve powerful officials, how often do you see clear, decisive consequences? And when it's an everyday citizen, the system moves fast. Charges, court, sentencing. So people start asking, is the law applied equally, or does power change the outcome? Now here's the part most people miss. This isn't just about money, it's about separation. When leadership operates under different conditions, with different consequences, they don't just represent the people anymore. They begin to exist apart from them. And that is not how this system was designed to function, because the Constitution doesn't enforce itself. Courts don't act unless cases are brought. Oversight doesn't happen unless it's demanded. And accountability doesn't exist unless the people insist on it. That's the real structure. Power doesn't just come from elections. It comes from attention, from awareness, from people willing to ask questions, even when it's uncomfortable. Because once people stop paying attention, power doesn't disappear. It concentrates. And when it concentrates long enough, it starts to separate. So let's go back to the question. If the system only works when people are watching, and most people assume someone else is watching, then who is actually holding the power in check? Or worse, has no one been watching at all?